Later this year, watchOS 10 is going to completely redefine how we use the Apple Watch. Not only is the entire UI being refreshed for an iOS 7-like moment here, there's going to be a ton of new features, and the way you use apps is even going to be changing. In fact, we should start here because apps aren't exactly going away, but the way Apple is basically re-engineering them is going to be way more focused on glanceable information and quick actions versus these really immersive experiences that the Apple Watch started out with. Because as it turns out, it's not actually fun to sit on your watch like a phone and just consume content. I think we started looking at it like a phone, and that's never what it was meant to be. So with watchOS 10, according to a new report from Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, Apple has rethought that, and they are focusing on a new widget-like interface that sounds pretty interesting and that we actually have a first look at. I've seen this image floating around for a while, and I do think it's authentic because Gurman himself shared something very similar right after this image came out. And it appears that this interface over on the right, where you see the page dots next to this simplified app interface, that is the future. Essentially bringing the key elements of all of your favorite apps in a scrollable interface that allows you to go through them pretty quickly. And I know you might think that's going to make things more convoluted to have to scroll through things, but think about how many apps you use on your Apple Watch on a daily basis. Because I can count mine on one hand. It's messages, workout, music, weather, and clock, if we're gonna count clock. I mean, it's pretty simple, and I feel like most folks use the same selection of apps. Now, for those of you that have been Apple Watch users for a while, you might be looking at this interface with the page dots on the right and the glanceable information, and you might remember something that actually was an Apple Watch feature historically called glances. And actually, until researching for this video, I completely forgot this was a feature where Apple literally had glanceable information on the Apple Watch back in the day, but it was really clunky and it didn't seem to be as effective as what Apple's trying to do now. But it was essentially the same idea, where you can just glance at core information from apps and swipe through them. But where Apple made that an auxiliary thing that felt redundant before, this sounds like it's going to be the main way you interact with apps now, because they'll be more powerful than just a glance. But they won't be as intense as actual apps, because again, nobody wants to mess around on their watch holding their arm up in the air. You have a phone for that. You want the watch to do something really quick, really actionable, and move on. And that's the approach Apple's taking here, and I think it's brilliant, and I cannot wait to try it. Now, of course, a key part of the Apple Watch, which will continue to be true with watchOS 10, is that it relies on an iPhone, and that's why I partnered up with Casecoo, who sponsored today's video, to tell you about their awesome Magic Stand iPhone cases. Of course, this sleek iPhone case does the essentials like offering great protection, but it also has this marquee feature, which you won't find anywhere else, and that is the Magic Stand, which folds out just like that. It's built to withstand 30,000 openings, allowing you to watch all of your favorite content completely hands-free. And just recently on their website, they added support for Klarna, so you get more time to pay for your items with no interest. It's great. You guys got to check them out. Link is down below per usual. This is the Casecoo Magic Stand. Man, it is the case I'm running, and you should run it too. Now, in this first image I showed you, you might have noticed that to the left of the Glances UI is the new home screen that is said to be coming in watchOS 10. This is not as confirmed, but I do think it is very realistic here, because if there's one piece of Apple software that has not aged well, it looks nice, but is really bad to use, it's the honeycomb UI. This thing is absolute garbage, and it has needed to go for a while. A 3x3 grid of apps makes it so much easier to get to where you're going. It is way more organized, and again, it goes back to how many apps people are actually using on the watch. Genuinely, if you use more than 10 Apple Watch apps on your watch, I guess leave a comment, because I do not believe that you're real. Similar to the iPhone as well, though, the home screen won't just be app icons. We're also hearing that folder support will come to the watch for the very first time, and it's apparently going to be reminiscent of how folders used to work back on the iOS 5 days. That was when you used to tap on a folder and then the apps would drop down below it. Apparently Apple's working on a similar interaction on the Apple Watch, and I actually think that would make a ton of sense on a smaller screen rather than the current folder system that would take up your entire display. And to me, folders are the perfect answer if you are somebody that does use a ton of apps on your Apple Watch. Just talking about all of this, it really clicks for me that when Apple launched the watch initially, they just kind of threw stuff at the wall, and slowly over the years, only some of it has stuck, and clearly the honeycomb UI has just not been it. There's the list view, but that is also really annoying. The grid, this is another one of those changes that I am just so thankful for. I do not like the honeycomb UI anymore. It is aesthetically beautiful, but functionality wise, no, it's trash. It's hard to do anything, and it is not efficient. Now, what what I've shown you so far is just the holistic and the general big changes that Apple's making for watchOS 10. But we're also hearing that in a lot of the apps, there's going to be big updates as well, although we don't have images or first looks at those just yet. But per usual, any new app features that we get in iOS 17, those are also going to be present in parallel on watchOS 10. So new stuff in Wallet, Find My that we're hearing, those changes in Redesign should also be happening to apps on the Apple Watch as well. That being said, there is one other fundamental change for the watch that I've been kind of holding in this whole time, because if this actually happens, it's going to be a game changer, and that is Apple finally bringing third-party watch faces to watchOS 10. And this rumor actually came from John Prosser, who said it on our podcast Genius Bar.
In terms
I'm
of
hearing
all the way.
watchOS third-party watch faces finally for Apple Watch.
It's about time.
Yeah, I think it's true, but I don't think it's true enough to say on like my show. You see, so I'm putting it on this one. Yeah.
Now listen, with respect, John's track record has been a little bit sus for Apple Weeks, but he held this in for some time, and I do think with all of these other systemic changes, the time for third-party watch faces and complete customization of watch faces is long overdue. For years, we've been able to put third-party complications on our Apple Watch, but it's still Apple's base and Apple's design. Listen, a few years ago, I wouldn't have even believed for a second that this could be happening, but look at the lock screen on iOS 16. I also think for a while we never thought Apple would let us add widgets or customize the font there, and we can. If Apple's throwing out the kitchen sink with every other part of watchOS and reinventing it there, I see no reason for them not to extend that to watch faces as well, and finally let third-party developers customize that part of the watch, because users want it, they're so excited. Like imagine you can make a watch face and put it on the App Store and anybody can download it, or you could sell watch faces if you want that do really unique things that Apple hadn't thought of before. I like this idea a lot. It would perfectly be the cherry on top to the rest of the changes, and I hope we get it. And just to be clear here, this feature is coming in less than a month at WWDC. I am mad hyped about it, and I'd actually love to talk about it with you guys in person and meet a bunch of you for the first time. That's why I'm doing a live event in San Francisco on June 6th, which is the day after WWDC. Myself, alongside John Prosser, Luke Miani, and Noah Rubin, are doing a live show together to talk about everything that Apple announces at WWDC. That's watchOS 10, iOS 17, the new headset. We're gonna experience that live with you in a format that like nobody's really done before. So we are mad excited, and tickets are on sale now. Just head over to geniusbargoesdark.com, and all of this would not be possible without Clean My Mac, who is our presenting sponsor. They have been absolutely phenomenal. I love them. They keep your Mac running super fast and speedy, and I mean it when I say this event is happening because of that. So again, link to buy tickets is down below in the description. I am so excited to meet you guys and talk about everything Apple announces, because this WWDC is going to be crazy. Following that, I feel like I can't avoid talking about sideloading in this video, because it's such a key part of the iOS 17 update coming to the iPhone. At least in Europe, you'll finally be able to go around Apple's App Store and install third-party apps directly onto your phone outside of Apple's control. It's a pretty wild idea, but the regulation over in Europe, they are mandating it. That also likely means that sideloading will be coming to watchOS 10, or at least support for that in the back end, and then Apple will probably enable it at the very last second. But that also means that we can now finally get some apps on here that we would never see under Apple's control. Like one simple thing I've always wanted to do on my Apple Watch is just be able to play music. I know it's a tin can speaker. I know it sounds like two little rats having a conversation anytime sound emits from this, but I want to do that. I want to be able to play music on my watch, and Apple has never allowed that. You always need headphones. I know it's impractical. I know it's silly. I know it's goofy, but sideloading could finally allow an app that allows you to do that. Or if you wanted to be wild and watch full YouTube videos on your Apple Watch with the sound coming out of it, you could build an app to do that. As much as the ethics around forcing sideloading on Apple are questionable, and I don't necessarily 100% agree with it, as a user and somebody who likes to customize the out of my watch and phone, sideloading I think is going to be a major win for us. Now, finally, let's talk about device support. This is sounding like it's going to be a very big update, and although we haven't gotten the official list leaked yet of supported devices, I have a feeling Apple could cut off support for some older stuff. And I don't say this to break your heart intentionally, it just is whenever Apple does a major iOS update, they usually cut off extra support for older devices because it is a lot for those to run on older chips. And with the watch having a kind of a wacky processor in general, I personally wouldn't be surprised if the Series 4 got cut off. I think Series 5 and above will be fine, but if Series 4 went away, came out in 2018, it's kind of on the edge for a completely new update like this, or I'm afraid watchOS 10 could run really poorly natively on it. Like, do you remember when Apple put iOS 7 on the iPhone 4 because everyone wanted it? Do we remember how that went on the iPhone 4? Let me just play a little video of that software experience on the iPhone 4. I just don't want that to happen to the Apple Watch Series 4. Just let it run fine like it does now. We don't need this on that watch, even though it'd be sad that you don't get those features if you have that one. Okay, now as far as release dates go, we are getting this in under a month at WWDC. That is when the first beta will be dropping for developers, but the public release will be happening later this year in September. It always comes out right around when the iPhones drop, so iPhone 15, watchOS 10, iOS 17, all of that will be launching at roughly the same time. So guys, really not that much longer to wait for this update. Listen, I say all of this in this video to say that watchOS 10 is going to be the key software moment for WWDC. Of course, the other big part of it is going to be for the Apple headset and the software coming on that. This WWDC, I'm going to say, I'm calling it, is going to be the most impactful of my time here on YouTube. It is going to be bananas, banana pants, banana crazy, and we get to experience this together. Some of you will be there with me in person. I hope all of you are there. Okay, I love you guys. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one, and peace.